lot of districts in Florida where it seemed like there just weren't any Democrats running for a while.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are. And we're making an effort to actually not have Republicans run an election without an opponent against them. So we are filling slots so that everybody is going to have someone running against them. So there are more Democrats going to be in the mix and in the next election. And something that happens in Florida that probably some of your listeners may not be familiar with at all is what is called the Constitutional Revision Committee. That for people in Florida, it can be a good thing, it can be a scary thing. Every 20 years in Florida, a Constitutional Revision Committee is formed by the governor and the Speaker of the House. Currently, they are both strong conservative Republicans, and they have the right to form this committee. And this committee then comes up with all of these provisions that they want to do to revise the Florida Constitution. And they put forth, that was this year. So all of these provisions that they bring forth, they will narrow down to some and present them to the voters on the ballot. Now, what can happen? Right now, they have modified these provisions, and they're down to about 30 provisions. I think it's 33 they're down to from 100 and some. And these would be proposed as amendments to the Florida Constitution. It can be very confusing for voters to try to go through 30-some amendments to the Constitution. It is intimidating for voters to have to do that. And they are frequently worded to make it hard to understand. Right now, the provisions, there's about 5 of the provisions dealing with that have to do with changing our public school system to all charter schools. There's another one that gives taxpayer money straight out to churches and private schools. There's one that strips the right of privacy from individuals. And we're having meetings all over the state where people such as myself and ACLU and the National Organization of Women are standing up and complaining about these provisions. But we just have to wait until later in the year to see what actually is going to be put on the ballots by the Constitutional Revision Committee. And then the vote that is determined on Election Day will determine what of these amendments actually becomes part of our Constitution in the state of Florida. I fear it because things that have not passed in the legislature sometimes come up from a conservative Constitutional Revision Committee to be stressed and tried to push through that way. And it's just amazing what they can do. At the last one of these meetings I went to, a lot of people asked them to put on the ballot about banning assault weapons, but that didn't fly anywhere in with this group. And I don't think it will be even recognized in our legislature. As I said yesterday, they didn't ban guns. Instead, they armed teachers when we were up there for that.
Is there a good website or Twitter feed or something where people can keep up on the things that are being proposed?
For the Constitutional Revision Committee or for the state legislature? Which one?
Both, I guess.
Okay. Yes, there is. And we stay vigilant down here. That's about the best word to say. The state legislature, actually, they televise their meetings. You can go and look up Florida legislature, the Florida Senate, and my Florida House, and they cover their bills and what's going on. But sometimes you have to have someone almost decipher the bills for you to actually see what's being said and done. Watching the debates can be boring and time-consuming, but that's the best way to do it. And they are televised over the internet. That's the Florida Constitution Revision Committee. To Google that, they also have their list of proposals that's current and they're acting on. And in fine print, it tells you that just because something is not listed as current does not mean it can't be brought back. So even though we have fought against them doing away with the right of privacy in Florida in this list of things. It doesn't mean at the last minute they won't put it up on the ballot to try to do away with a woman's right of choice. That's their fear on that one. But yes, we're constantly on the computer trying to watch what they're doing this week and trying to keep people appraised of it. And an easy way to do it, let me throw this out too, is the Florida AFL-CIO on their site keeps a little current webcast as to what's happening in the legislature that week. And it's quite amusing to watch that. It's about a 5 to 7 minute podcast that they put together on what passed and what didn't pass in the legislature and what the legislature is trying to do. And it's usually done in a comedic, sarcastic manner that will definitely keep you interested and amused. So that would be one way to do it for sure.
Well, then we'll put a link to that up for sure in our show notes so that people can keep up with what's going on.
In Florida, that's one of the best ways to do it.
Well, we don't want to keep you too long, but is there anything else you want to make sure that people know about Florida and Florida politics?
Just that we're working very hard down here to get people engaged, to register people, to try to turn out the vote. And people are becoming more and more determined to turn Florida blue again. We were blue when President Obama was elected. We're going in that direction, and with the Clinton election, and people down here are still wondering how we were affected by the, quote, Russian connection. That's a big topic among progressive Democrats in Florida who really aren't sure whether we lost that election, but they're the same people, most of us, who, frankly, we didn't think Gore lost the election either, but that was a few years back. We're working at it. People are working harder than they have, and people are calling me and saying, put me to work. So people are interested. They want to salvage their democracy.
All right. Well, thank you very much. This has been extremely informative.
Well, thank you for asking me, and good luck with your endeavors.
Thank you. We look forward to writing lots of postcards to voters for candidates in Florida in November.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I'll get you some information and put you in touch with my grassroots committee. Okay.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Kelly. I'm here as usual with my co-host, Sophy. Hi, Sophy.
Hey, Kelly.
And today we have with us Margaret Melanie Gold, who is with Indivisible Central Florida. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. Maybe you could start, Melanie, by just telling us a little bit about where in Florida you are and what you've been doing with Indivisible and what your relationship with politics is.
We're Central Florida, so we cover a lot of counties. I mean, I guess you could call us the I-4 corridor as far as it relates to politics, which is, I guess, a pretty important corridor for Florida. And basically, I guess I was pretty normal in the sense that I would vote most of the time, or actually all of the time, and sometimes every once in a while I would do a little bit more politically, but not really that active. But me, as well as other folks that I've encountered now, we're just waking up to the fact that we need to be a little bit more engaged, and we need to be a little bit more part of the process and really understand what's going on, because a lot of us are starting to feel a little bit angry about what's happening in politics right now and want to change that direction. So we're taking it upon ourselves to make that change. And Indivisible was one of the vehicles that came out to do that. And I think a lot of people have flocked to Indivisible for a way to do something positive.
So we're certainly seeing a lot of that nationally with people sort of becoming more engaged in politics. Is that, do you think, more or less true in Florida or in Central Florida than in other places? Are you seeing a lot more activism than you used to see?
I've seen incredible amounts of activism, and most of the people that I talk to have never been active in politics before. This is their first time, and these people who have never been active in politics before are now phone banking and canvassing, knocking on doors, writing postcards, planning rallies, taking part in rallies, things that they would never have dreamed of doing before. So it's quite amazing. There's a lot of energy out there.
What do we think are the things to watch in Florida right now? Maybe we could start with some of the political races in Florida. You just had a really big win in a special election by Margaret Good. I don't remember offhand what district that was, but it was a state house seat. And I know this because I wrote postcards to voters.
Yeah, District 72, yeah, and a group that, a Thursday group of ours was writing postcards to voters too, yes, very definitely. District 72 in Sarasota, that was a good win. That was a good flip. And then we had one earlier in Miami-Dade in District 40 State Senate. So we've had a couple of those flips. And I think the main difference that we're seeing now is that where there were seats and that were going unchallenged, the feeling is now that nothing should be left unchallenged. Everybody should have a candidate. Every seat should have a candidate.
When we did our recent episode on Texas, what the people in Texas kept telling us was that Texas isn't a red state. It's a state where people haven't been voting enough. Do you think that that is true as well in Florida? Do you know what your voter turnout looks like there?
I'm not sure what the voter turnout is, but I would say that's very true, probably more in terms of mid-elections. And I think that was the biggest wake-up call for a lot of people, because Republicans would vote and turn out in midterms. Democrats tended to come out more when we had presidential elections, but sort of sleep through that midterm election, which caused a lot of problems. Now, I think the energy is so high that it's very, very important to be out in the midterms. And the energy is also high for state elections, which I think was another thing that Democrats overlooked.
Yeah, which led to a lot of gerrymandering.
Yes, which led to, well, and I think people are waking up to see the importance. If you don't go out and vote all the time, there's consequences to that. And one of the consequences, of course, was gerrymandering, where even if we did get more votes in the Democratic side, we weren't going to win the seat.
You have a lot of races coming up in 2018 in Florida. Your governor's up for election. Is that right? This is an incumbent who's term limited?
Yeah, Rick Scott term limited. So we have a governor election, and also Rick Scott has decided to go after Nelson's seat. So he's going to be running against Nelson. So that's an important election for Florida. And then in Stephanie Murphy's House seat was a seat that we turned in the last election from being Republican. So that's a pretty important one for us to keep.
And is Marco Rubio up this year?
No, he's got another 4 years, I believe.
Oh, that's too bad.
He just got reelected. Yeah, I know. He just got reelected, so he's not going anywhere for a while. Here's the thing. I mean, after the town hall, if he had have been up, I don't know if you saw the CNN town hall where he was questioned about his taking money from the NRA and gun control. I think that would have been because his last, this last race in the 2016 election, it was a very close election for him. It would have maybe moved the needle if he